In a moment, I'll be joined by the chief of staff to the most politically successful first-term president since FDR. Not an exaggeration. As MSNBC political contributor Steve Bannon points out, in the post-Watergate era, Democratic presidents in their first midterms have seen their party lose an average of 44 House seats and 6 Senate seats. President Joe Biden's Democrats, quote, just lost 9 House seats, expanded their Senate majority, gained gubernatorial offices. They also didn't lose any state legislative chambers in this year's midterms, a first for the party since Roosevelt in 1934. And joining me now is Ron Klain, who serves as White House Chief of Staff, the top aide to President Biden. Ron, I got to imagine your job is difficult and stress-inducing, and some days you walk in with a little bit of a knot in your stomach, but some mornings like today, maybe a little bounce in your step. How's everyone feeling at the White House?
Well, of course, we're thrilled with Senator Warnock's victory, thrilled that it caps off a midterm where we returned every single Democratic senator who sought re-election, gained seats in the governor's mansions, gained state legislative chambers, really a historic midterm performance. The last time a president did not lose a single incumbent in the Senate, there were only 96 senators. There were only 48 states. So this is a pretty historic outcome in the midterms, capped off by Senator Warnock's win last night.
How much do you think that's attributable to the popularity of the basic brass tacks, meat and potatoes, domestic policy agenda, the legislative agenda that the Democratic Party and President Biden have pursued?
Look, I think that has a lot to do with it. Obviously, every election is complicated, many factors. But I think the popularity of what we have done these 2 years really stands out. You can look at the Warnock race as an example. Senator Warnock ran largely on 2 things that were part of our agenda here. Capping the price of insulin at $35, which we achieved for senior citizens in the Inflation Reduction Act before Congress adjourned for the summer. And secondly, taking on student loan debt relief and having that $10,000 and $20,000 plan to roll back student debt, which the president did by executive order this summer. So he's one example. We had other senators run on the infrastructure bill, run on the CHIPS and Science Act, run on the progress we made thanks to the rescue plan, run on the PACT Act, the bill we enacted to help veterans. So we've had a very, very busy legislative and policy first 2 years. I think that gave people a lot to run on, and that's why I think our incumbents were so successful.
I got to say, I've been covering U.S. economy and the global economy, the political economy for 2 decades now. And I am amazed at what we've seen just in the last few months. Here's just a bunch of the headlines. Tim Cook says Apple's going to start building chips in the U.S. Arizona investment, $40 billion with a second semiconductor chip plant. Apple will buy chips produced at the Arizona factory. You've got battery plants coming. Multiple automakers saying they're going to be opening battery plants here in the United States. Hyundai, Honda, LG. This is all part of a policy vision. Did you think this would why is this happening now?
Well, look, Chris, I do think this was central to why Joe Biden ran for president. When he ran for president, he said he was going to rebuild the soul of the country, work on social issues, rebuild the backbone of the country, which by that he meant, these core manufacturing things. You've heard him say for all 2 years of his presidency and so many of his speeches, where is it written that America can't be a great manufacturing nation again? This is what brought him to politics. This is what brought him to the White House. And so we have been relentless about the idea that we should make things in America again. We should create 6-figure jobs for people who don't have a 4-year college degree, making the products of the future, making electric cars, making electric batteries, making high-tech semiconductors. And we should do that because it's great for our jobs, but it's also great for making sure that we're not dependent on foreign sources for these key supply chain things. Look, one thing we saw as we came out of the pandemic was all kinds of shortages of chips, of key elements to make cars. We had, a lot of backlogs and tie-ups in our systems. And as a result, prices went up. So I think that, reshoring these jobs, reshoring this manufacturing, makes our country strong. It makes our national security strong, makes our job market strong. It creates a lot of good union jobs. You know, the president is the most pro-union president I think we've ever had. He wants to create the kind of manufacturing jobs that people can raise a family on, that we can build economies around, that we can build this country around.
You mentioned the president's pro-labor record, which I think is speaks for itself. Although I got to ask you about the railroad strike. Obviously, there was a majority of the workers represented voted against that deal that had been negotiated by the Biden administration. The president urged both houses of Congress to pass, and they did, legislation that essentially enforced the deal, whether the workers wanted it or not. There are a lot of railroad workers who feel angry, who say that the problems with our current rail system, it's this sort of just-in-time model that has cut down 30% of the labor force, has people going to God knows where at 2 a.m. and no sick days, is unsustainable and dangerous. What do you say to those workers who say the president says he's pro-labor, but he hung us out to dry?
Well, first of all, what I'd say is the agreement that we're talking about. First of all, organized labor asked us to appoint an emergency board. We did. That produced a proposed settlement. That wasn't good enough. We went back to the table and made the railroad industry give even more concessions to workers. And in the end, the agreement that was reached between labor and management was ratified by 8 of the 12 unions involved here. It gave a 26% pay hike to the people who work in this industry. It gave health care benefits, really solid, permanent health care benefits for the first time in this industry. And it gave unpaid leave days to some of the workers who never had that benefit before, who actually were docked, were penalized for even just taking off an unpaid day. So I think the agreement made a lot of progress for a lot of the key issues for working people in the industry. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But in the end, the president faced a choice, which was have the Congress adopt this agreement, which not only gave a lot of benefits to people working in the railroad industry, but the alternative was a potential rail shutdown, hundreds of thousands of people, a lot of them unionized, losing their jobs, particularly in the auto industry and other manufacturing industries, communities losing their access to clean water because they wouldn't have the chemicals to clean up their water, hospitals shutting down. And I think in the face of that catastrophic alternative, the president believed that the best thing for the largest number of working people, including unionized working people in this country, was to have Congress adopt this agreement.
Final quick question and quickly on this. Is the White House looking into any executive action that could possibly deliver sick days for employees, given that the railroads are big federal contractors?
Yeah. You know, we're always looking at ways to expand paid leave. That's what the president said when he put this proposal before the Congress, and all ideas to expand paid leave, not just for people who work in the rail industry, but for everyone in our country. No, we are the only developed nations without a systematic system of paid leave. The president wants to fix that.
All right. Ron Klain, Chief of Staff to President Joe Biden, thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris.